Good night, alternate viewers. Kimar Short here, and welcome to Alternate Views. Yet another Thursday. Today, the 27th day of June 2024. I want to say how happy I am to be here with you yet again on Alternate Views, sharing knowledge freely, where we all learn, where we all benefit, where we share and reciprocate all of the positive vibes. So thank you very much for tuning in early. The numbers are building nicely. Let's not forget to circulate the live tonight. Let's not forget to like alternate views, and let's not forget to let's see, yes. Let's not forget to share your thoughts as well. Let us have a very good discussion. As was advertised, we are discussing Kenya's finance bill tonight on Alternate Views. So you guys know from on the Marcy Week show, we had one of the protesters, young uh, progressive Page Bin, it was his name, and he was discussing on that program about the protests in Kenya, and but we went a bit deeper, or we want to go a bit deeper tonight on Alternate Views, where we speak about why the protests were happening in extensive detail. So we're gonna quote directly from Kenya's legislation, which was put in the parliament, and we're gonna discuss some of the proposals set by Mr. William Ruto, who's the president of Kenya. Right? So Alternate Views is going to Africa. Right? We're now in Africa. So welcome to Alternate Views tonight again. I am your host, Kimar Stewart. Um, we are supported and endorsed by the Caribbean Progress Studies Institute, and we are sponsored, as always, by Stewart and Perkins Caribbean uh, consulting firm. So we acknowledge our sponsors and the different persons who endorse our platform. So let me get to the comments early out and welcome some of my early patrons. Queen McQueeness, good night to you. She's saying good night to all listening. Welcome. Sylvia Rock is saying, looking forward to hearing you tonight. Thank you very much, Sylvia. I am looking forward to sharing with you. We have Nigel Carrington. Welcome, Nigel. Good to see you here. Marcia, good evening. Marcia is saying good evening to all alternate viewers. Let me know if you can hear me well. Let me know if you can see me well. Let us cover those logistics earlier because we want a smooth show tonight. As you can see, we've been trying to improve constantly from the different bugs and nuances that we have on the show. So we are getting steadier. You know, we're investing. So let me know how's the quality looking, how is it sounding, and let us get on the road tonight. Fabian, thank you very much. Um, all of my St. John people, welcome to the show. All of my people from the city of Bridgetown as well. All of my people from St. George, St. Lucie, St. Philip, Christchurch, St. Michael, St. Andrew, St. James, St. Peter, St. Thomas, and anywhere that I didn't mention. All of Barbados and Barbadians abroad in the diaspora from the UK, from the US, from further Europe, from Canada. Welcome, my Caribbean guests as well. Trinidadians, St. Lucians, Vincentians, Jamaicans, CARICOM, Guyanese, my South Americans, you know, welcome to Alternate Views. So, Marcia is saying that she's hearing and seeing well, so thank you, Marcia. Good night to Romeo Hinkson. Welcome, Romeo, to Alternate Views. Thank you very much for tuning in. Keith Kinch is saying hi, Kimura realizes the production quality has raised. Congrats. So thank you very much, Keith. That's what we are here to do. Take your suggestions and steadily improve weekly. We are not perfect as yet. We don't have the perfect studio setup, but as you can see, we are on the way and we're making it better for you, the viewers. So we are up at 7:15 p.m. We're building. Let's see, we have 57 persons. So we want to get that up to 100, and we want to get that, going. So we can have a good discussion tonight. So, as was discussed in the title of the program, Kenya's finance bill. But before we speak to Kenya's finance bill, I want to speak to Barbados and take a quote from Alternate Views, right? Alternate Views, the book. I want to take a quote from Alternate Views, and as many of you know, this is Alternate Views here. For those persons, this is my copy, personal copy, by the way. Wonderful. So, you know, from Alternate Views, we always take a quote from there to start the program out. So, in keeping with tradition, we had in Barbados, if you remember, something rolled out in our country called a mini budget. Right? A mini budget. And if you guys remember, um, we were told that Barbados was overtaxed in 2018. We were told that the people could afford no more taxes on the taxes that were on us in 2018. We were told that bus fares could not be increased. We were told also that NSRL was choking the country. We were also told that we would get a reduction in VAT. We were also told that we were going to get a 23% increase in wages. We were also told that state assets would not be sold. It was also indicated in Barbados that there was not necessarily an intention to go to the IMF on a change of government. We were also told that the garbage and sewage tax would have been a temporary tax. We were also told that the last government was borrowing indiscriminately, borrowing too much. That's what the current government in Barbados was telling the last government, that they were borrowing too much. We were also told that people who was owed money would be repaid those monies through declaring of borrowing and declaring of arrears. Right? So persons who were owed income tax arrears and stuff like that, we were told that they were going to be paid back. Right? We were told that in Barbados. So Judy Jokes is saying, that good night, Kimar. Nice being on your show, watching that Kenyan march. I feel for those that was killed in that protest. My sympathy goes out to their families. And that is very important to acknowledge those persons who um, would have sacrificed the fight for their countries and would have lost their lives. So salute those Kenyan patriots. Um, we never want to experience that level of violence enacted by the state, that forward aggression on the people. We never want it to get there. Okay. But remember, something like that occurred in close by in Trinidad when Abu Bakr took over the Parliament of Trinidad. So these things do happen where there are citizens rising against the government at the time based off the harsh measures proposed. Right? So Barbados, given all of the facts that I just gave to you about the things that we were told, uh, we then had a change of government, and Barbados did everything that I just told you in reverse. In reverse. So we dropped from a 23% wage increase down to 4. Where they were saying that we were overtaxed and we could not take any more taxes, bam, we were hit with the service tax. Bam, we were hit with income tax increases. We were hit with land tax increases. We were hit with across the board price increases in the supermarket, price increases for gas, price increases for water. Right? Which was the exact opposite of what you were told in the lead up to a campaign that was successful, giving um, a particular a particular political party 30 seats in the House of Parliament. Hey, that's what you were told, and that's what happened after. So, alternate views focuses tonight on the Kenyan bill, and it says here to start, and this is just a basic foundation that we're going to set tonight, and that foundation will then open up further conversation into the Kenyan bill, paint the similarities between what occurred in Kenya versus what occurred earlier in Barbados, and the different response that the Kenyan people give versus the response that the Barbadian people give. Right? So it says here that overall, the team, meaning the IMF team, had positive and candid discussions with the government during their visit, and in the coming months, we expect to continue our close dialogue with the Barbados government with the aim of reaching understandings on economic policies that could underpin an IMF supported program, and our goal is to help Barbados achieve higher living standards for the years ahead. And during the visit, the team met with Prime Minister of Barbados, you know who that is, who's Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs, the central bank governor at the time was Mr. Cleviston Haynes, and other key officials in the government of Barbados. And the team, meaning the IMF, also had good opportunities for the exchange of views with social partners, including labor unions. And this is the IMF speaking, having good meetings with the labor unions and the private sector. Right? So I underscore that point because it's going to become relevant to you. Why? So it says also now that the team, meaning the IMF, would like to thank the Barbados government for open and candid discussions and to express its desire to continue to work closely with Barbados in the period ahead. And the government then turned around and rolled out what they call the Barbados Economic and Recovery and Transformation Plan. Right? The government wrote that out. So that BERT plan is essentially what the Kenyan finance bill is in Barbados. Right? So part of the BERT plan, right? And they said that the BERT plan tackled the high public debt. So if you remember, the last government was railing against the debt levels that were in 2018. Let's do a comparison of the debt levels in 2018 versus the debt levels now. The debt of Barbados is substantially higher than it was in 2018. Large deficits. I guess the we are at $1 billion in deficits, right? Which meaning that what the government makes, what they earn minus what they spend minus interest payments, right? So the government of Barbados has a deficit, a loss of $1 billion on it 2 years in a row now, right? The year before that, it was up in the high, going on to the billions, but now it's for sure in the billions, right? BERT was supposed to tackle the high transfers to government enterprises, meaning the money from central government, monies that Parliament would vote to go to run these state-owned enterprises. They were to reduce those levels. However, the allocations from central government has substantially increased. Right? The wage bill has substantially gone up. Right? So remember, BERT was to tackle these things to reduce them, right? And lower foreign reserves. The foreign reserves have gone up on total borrowed money because we had COVID that mashed us up in terms of foreign exchange, and then we were still not earning foreign exchange because tourism and the other foreign exchange earners, we still had large deficits. We had large current account financial deficits, losses in foreign exchange, basically, right? So we were borrowing that money. So we are now still borrowing money, and we are have billions in reserves now, but on total borrowed money from the IMF, IDB, CDB, the European Investment Bank, right? So what the BERT plan was to tackle high debt, large deficits, high transfers from central government to state-owned enterprises, and low foreign reserves. That was what BERT was put in place to do. So to achieve these four things here, right, the government had to roll out taxes on the population of Barbados, right? And they called it a $1.2 billion adjustment plan, right? So the government rolled out $1.2 billion in financial adjustment on the population of Barbados, and the people did not protest. The people saw it as I don't know, but the people saw it as I don't know. They did not protest, but in Kenya, the people protested. So let me just rehash your memory a little bit here, right? Let me just rehash your memory a little bit here through this BERT plan and the implementation of this mini budget. The government took off an SRL, citing that the prices in the supermarket would come down. That they did not come down. The government implemented the fuel tax, right? This is in the budget, and this is in the BERT plan. This is the same almost Kenyan. This is the Kenyan finance bill, Barbados style. Removing NSRL, prices didn't come down, right? In fact, prices rose almost by double digits. They implemented the fuel tax, right? So you pay more at the pump every time. They increased the income tax bands up to 40%. Made you pay more income tax. The people did not protest, right? The registration fees for commercial vehicles went up, right? $1,000. All persons purchasing second-hand commercial vehicles, they have to pay a fee of $1,000. We didn't hear any protests about that. The government wrote off taxes owing to it, right? Billions of dollars of taxes, VAT, and income tax. So it says here that the Ministry of Finance of Barbados declared that BRA, which is the Barbados Revenue Authority, was carrying on its books amounts owing to it that were uncollectible, and that the Ministry of Finance wrote off all taxes owed for the tax years 1968 to 2000. Right? So the government wrote off $1 billion in taxes and allowed businesses and other persons who owed that money to get away scot-free. No protesting. All right. Corporation tax, they went up to 30%. So if you had a business, you had to pay 5% more of 30%. Right. They added VAT to the internet, online purchases. Right. So every time you buy something from Amazon, all you have to pay the government of Barbados VAT. I still need it explained to me by some economists. How could Amazon, a company that is domiciled overseas, be a tax collector for the government of Barbados? How is that legal? How is that practical? Where if you make a purchase in Barbados on Amazon and you have Amazon, you're charged with VAT, and Amazon then becomes a tax collector for the government of Barbados. So what is happening in terms of the transfer payments between Amazon and the government of Barbados as it relates to this VAT that is being charged? Right? So, give me 1 second. You sure? I can hear an idea. Right. As I was saying, you had then, right? But I still need that explained. You had then the health service contribution, right? Which was charged to run the hospital, right? This is the same hospital of Barbados that is going through all of the problems that it has. Cancer machine not working, a brand new accident emergency, the water is washing in and out of it. It's still not spacious enough to house the amount of patients. Right? The hospital is in a state of disrepair, but still you were charged a health service contribution, which is the 2.5% levy on your salary, which the government is taking out to send to the hospital. But still the hospital is getting worse and worse and worse. So has there ever been any account on how much this health service contribution that is going to the hospital is coming out of your salary as a Barbadian taxpayer? Have you ever heard the Ministry of Health or even the Ministry of Finance saying how much money this health service contribution has made and how much has gone into the hospital? You're paying more for a hospital, but the hospital getting worse. Think about it. The Kenyans showed the world that when you bring these type of suppressive and extractive policies, protests, right? The government also tax travel, right? Remember the tax travel, departure tax? So if you were flying outside of CARICOM, you're going to pay US $70. And if you fly within CARICOM, you're going to pay US $35. A departure tax that they put for people who come in and, singing in Barbados. It even tax travel. Travel, which is your most lucrative investment according to tourism arrivals and tourism performance. But still, you went tax what they call the golden goose, right? How you tax tourism? Mm. Then they also tax travelers too. They also tax the hotel rooms, right? So they put a room rate levy on the hotel rooms. Again, another tax on tourism, right? And that was a 2.5 production levy on all tourism related services, direct related services, collected on government's behalf by the businesses, right? So even the tourism pie is being shared with the businesses as it relates to this levy. And then you had a 10% charge on shared levies like Airbnb and those type of operations. They tax those too, right? So I had to go back through all of these measures just to rehash for you, right? What was in your finance bill, Barbados, and let me quote something for alternative views here. It says that the Ministry of Finance has warned that all ministries and all statutory corporations will be required to identify new revenue streams and to review existing fee structures and business models, noting that phase 2 of the BERT plan would allow for enhancement of our revenue earning capacity with respect to user fees in those areas where the fees have not been increased for decades. So, what statutory corporations in Barbados do you pay fees for, or that have not been increased for a while? So, your driver's license, um, your ID card, passports, police certificates of character, uh, the government pharmacies with healthcare, um, school fees for education, liquor licenses, um, real estate licenses, legal licenses, all types of fees where the government charges fees. They're saying that they expect to review the whole structure and increase fees across the board in all ministries and statutory corporations. They told the Barbadian population that, and there was no similar reaction to what happened in Kenya. Right. So I hope you're getting the point here. Right. I hope you're getting the point here. Because I really wanted, I had to do that run up to show you that the economic policies in Barbados were similar to some of the amendments in Kenya. So let me read a bit here. Well, let me take a pause, sorry, and acknowledge some of you because I realize we're past 100 people now. So thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We have, go back up. Judy Jokes is saying what this government should tax is the higher wealthy, they're the ones who have it and can pay. Judy, as was said, they received $1 billion tax write-offs. Square 4, good night to you. Good night, Square 4. Michael Jokes. Marcia is saying under the IMF, they will all have to follow the same rule book. What goes for one goes for all. Cal Biz saying loud and clear. Sir Alfred Benjamin, welcome to the show. Mr. King. Vanessa King. Welcome to Alternate Views, sir. Happy to have you. Marion Griffith is saying good evening. Kimar Bajan suffering in silence. Yes, and the Kenyans are not suffering in silence. The Kenyans are protesting, 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 and standing up for their rights. ADG is saying good night, Kimar. We are suffering in silence. People complain every day, but we are scared to come out and march. Marion Griffith is saying good night. Oh, think about it though. How is it that entire country, most of it that's not connected to a sewage tax, is paying a sewage tax that, according to Dr. Clay Maskell, economic advisor of the government, is making $80 million a month? A garbage and sewage tax, according to Dr. Clay Maskell, making $80 million a month with no account for it, with no paperwork to back it. Is collected directly by the Water Authority, and it was featured in the Nation newspaper that the general manager of the Water Authority said that he was taking up the sewage tax and running the Water Authority with it because government was not giving him the subvention from central government on time. We are not connected to sewage. We have wells, suck wells. We are paying a sewage tax, which they said were for garbage trucks. Right? And to help clean up the South Coast, which is another issue. But still, we are paying a sewage tax and not connected to sewage. So, is it not something worthy of protest? You know that if you have to get your well clean, you have to call a private contractor, Jose or somebody to come and have your wells sucked. But still, you're paying sewage tax. These are things to think about, people. But we spoke about Barbados extensively to start, to set our foundation. So let us get into why we are here. So, as you would have seen, there would have been some protests going on around Kenya, which would have shown some people in the country reacting to the finance bill of Kenya. The finance bill which was laid in the Parliament of Kenya. So it says that the finance bill 2024, enacted by the Parliament of Kenya, right, it will be deemed effective on the 1st of September 2024, and then the latter parts on January 2025. So the bill, because we're trying to see purely from an economics perspective, right? We're trying to see purely from an economist lens, economic analysis of why essentially the Kenyans were protesting. So President Ruto decides that he wants to bring a bill. This is President Ruto, who is very much in favor of liberal economics to some extent, very associated with the multilateral banking system, IMF and those institutions. But the bill, which is the finance bill, speaks to income tax. So it says that Section 2 of the Income Tax Act is amended, and in the definition of individual, it says that in the definition of digital content monetization, inserting the following paragraphs. Like, so it speaks to digital content monetization. So, as you know, digital content would be Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, you know, the videos you see the young people doing and marketing themselves and having these huge social media followings, 1 million followers, 500,000 followers, blue ticks on Instagram. Then you have X, Twitter, and then some other social media platforms. So it says that the Income Tax Amendment Act is amended in the definition of digital content monetization. So this is directly targeting the young people of Kenya. Like this finance bill of Kenya is directly targeting the young people because they are seeking to amend the Income Tax Act in Kenya to target those who create digital content. Right? And says that the persons who I insert new paragraph speaking to persons who do creative works. It speaks to creating or sharing of that material or any other material that is not exempt under this act. Right? And it speaks to that of an individual retirement fund, uh, and it speaks to pension funds. Right? So let us go down. Let us go down. That is income tax, right? So let us get some more direct definitions here. We're just trying to get the right. So it says now that Section 3 of the Income Tax Act of Kenya is amended by deleting the paragraphs that existed before to substitute the following: a digital marketplace. And a digital marketplace would be an online or electronic platform which enables a person to sell or provide goods, property, or services. So everybody on Alternative Views know what a digital marketplace is, right? A digital marketplace will be Facebook Marketplace, will be Instagram, where people have online stores, where people buy and sell products on Instagram. There's BIM Vibes and there's some other online platforms. There's the like PriceSmart and some of those online things that you can go on and do online shopping in a digital marketplace. They amended the Income Tax Act to focus on taxing the digital marketplace. Right? So I hope you guys are following. So the Income Tax Act of Kenya is amended to target the digital marketplace, right? And it lists and says that a digital marketplace means an online or electronic platform which enables a person to sell or provide goods, property, or services, including, and they give a list, right? And that list goes as follows: ride hailing services, so Uber, My Taxi, any online platform that you can catch a cab with, you're taxing it. Food delivery services, so a lot of those young persons who, and not just young persons, but people in general who use social media to sell goods and services, to sell food specifically, where you put up that you have food online and people just do orders and stuff. Any food delivery services, any digital marketplace, they're taxing it. Freelance services. So a freelance could mean anything. Once you provide freelance service in a digital marketplace, any type of service you do, I'm just assuming here what the word freelance means, any type of freelance services you do in the digital marketplace, William Ruto, his proposals are saying we're going to tax that. Professional services. Wherever you do that professional, you could be a lawyer, you could be a doctor, you could be an economist, you could be a marketing consultant. You could be any profession as long as you have it in the digital marketplace. Any income from that, according to these amendments, will be taxed. Rental services. If you provide any type of rental services in digital marketplace, that will be taxed. And it says task-based services. Task-based services. So I guess if you're a dog walker, you provide dog walking services online, and you're selling dog walking services online, they won't tax you, right? So it says last that any other service that is not exempt from tax under this act. So any type of online service in the digital marketplace, they are seeking to tax those persons. Majority of them are young people. So I hope you're getting a clearer picture as to why majority of the persons in the videos in Kenya running around were youth, were young people, because this act, Kenya's finance bill, is focusing heavily on amending the income tax act of Kenya to focus on digital platforms. Right? And it says that the income tax act is amended by deleting the words 5 years and substituting 3 years. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that later. It says that the payment received by a person let me skip that. Dr. Cummings, good night. I am supposed to revert back to you, sir. Haven't forgotten you. We'll chat in due time, but thank you for tuning on to the program. Welcome to Alternate Views. Tonight we are discussing the Kenyan protest and the Kenyan finance bill, which caused the death of, there was told, 300 people. A massive citywide protest in Nairobi, Kenya. So we're discussing purely from a parliamentary and economic perspective the bill in detail and seeing why those Kenyans were protesting. We even saw a protester coming on the Marseille show. So we're doing it from the economic perspective tonight. The bill, the finance bill of 2024, which is causing a massive uprising, calling for the removal of President William Ruto of Kenya. Right. So it says here that the Section 10 of the Income Tax Act of Kenya is amended by inserting the new following sections. Where a resident or a non-resident person being the owner or operator of a digital marketplace or platform and makes or facilitates payment in respect of digital content monetization, goods, property, or services, the amount thereof shall deem to be income which occurred in or was derived from Kenya. So even if you are resident or non-resident, once your platform is any monetization happening in that part of the world, tax. So Square 4, you're correct. They said that, and she's, well, we don't know if it's a he or she, but Square 4 is saying Kimar, President Ruto is a harsh tax collector. That's why the young people rise against the finance bill. And that is correct, you know. Mr. Ruto's nickname is the tax collector, right? So this bill is showing you where you getting the disruption. Keith Kinch is saying, but Kimara they came back and walked back a lot of things after all hell break loose. It might be so. Yes, he actually repealed this entire bill that I'm going through right now. He repealed it. They pulled it back. So I'm saying that there was never a need for it in the first place. But because, and I don't want to get in this part yet, but because Kenya is a very indebted country as well, and Kenya is in the hands of certain people like Barbados, Kenya has to do these things to recoup revenues to be able to pay down loans. But we're going to get into that idea later. We're going through the bill right now. Right? But yes, this bill was pulled back. So, in continuing analysis of the bill, it says that in this section, platform means a digital platform or website that facilitates the exchange of a short-term engagement, a freelance, or a provision of service between a service provider who is an independent contractor or freelancer and a client or customer. Right? So you're seeing how far-reaching this bill is in the digital world. Right? You're seeing how far-reaching this bill is in the digital world. I'm giving you some additional tenets of the bill, which are outstanding. Hi, Anika Hope. Good night to you. Right. So it says that this Act of Kenya, these new amendments shall not apply to a person who is exempt from tax under certain schedules they listed out, to pension funds and assets of that pension fund, to a real estate investment vehicle, sorry, to a real estate investment vehicle, and to non-operating investment holdings companies. So they ain't going after the big businesses with this one. You see who the targeting though, but you see who the exempting, to an investment fund that is an ultimate parent entity. So that means that the one tax might see or the one tax might lose big companies with that, to a sovereign wealth fund, and to an intergovernmental or supranational organization, including a wholly owned agency or organ of the intergovernmental or supranational organization. Right? So IDB, IMF, and those people, they're exempt. Right? These people have online portals, by the way, where you could come in and they set up your digital thing, but they're exempt. But I all had a theory, right? I had a theory that the income gained by the IMF and the income gained by the IDB and the income gained by the CDB and all of these multinational banks, these institutions earn them tax free, right? They earn them tax free, basically. But it is income anyway because they have it in their balance sheets. So all of the debt that we owe to these institutions, they'll have it listed as income on their balance sheets. But still they don't pay taxes, income taxes in Barbados for that income leaving our shores and going into their balance sheets. And based off this amendment to the Kenyan finance bill, Mr. Ruto exempted them from and said that this bill will not cover any of those types of organizations. But my theory on tax for these institutions is not necessarily that's just my idea. That's just a concept I thought about. And Sean Cool is making a very important point. IMF employees don't pay taxes, also the OECD. That is so true. The employees of these type of organizations don't pay taxes in host countries. Right? So if the IMF saying somebody they don't pay taxes in Barbados, right? But the salaries are awfully high, and I suspect that they're paid in US dollars as well. And expats are also paid. I don't know if you know what's an expat, but expatriates are paid in US dollars also. And expats don't pay tax either. Right? So just some things to think about. So it says here in this legislation that there's something called a covered person. So Mr. Ruto in his finance bill is giving leverage to covered persons. And the finance bill of Kenya 2024 calls a covered person a resident or a person with a permanent establishment in Kenya who is a member of a multinational group, and the group has a consolidated annual turnover of 750 million euros or more in consolidated financial statements of the ultimate parent entity in at least 2 of the 4 years of income immediately preceding the test year of income. And those are what he called covered persons. So you're covered if your income is high like that. Right? So, to move on. They are proposing in this finance bill, right? They are proposing in this finance bill, and this session is supposed to come into being the 2025 1st of January, that notwithstanding any other provision, but a tax known as a motor vehicle tax should be payable to the commissioner on each motor vehicle at the time of the issuance of an insurance cover. Right? So Mr. Ruto is proposing to Kenyans a motor tax. Right? A tax on your car. So you're gonna pay car tax. Right? They say a motor tax. There's a road tax or anything. They say that you have to pay a motor tax. Shall be payable to the commissioner, meaning the revenue commissioner, on each motor vehicle at the time of the issuance of an insurance cover. And the motor vehicle tax shall be payable based on the value of the motor car. I guess that's the old road tax system that we had, right? Where road tax was paid on the value of the car. But we removed that and we implemented the fuel tax and the same plan that I spoke about much earlier. So in Kenya, the Kenyan president Ruto is proposing that they're going to implement the old road tax system that Barbados did away with. They are proposing to bring that into Kenya come January 2025. So they have it a motor tax. The Kenya president is seeking to tax every motor car once you have a insurance cover, right? So, and moving on, and this is the part here now that like it said that notwithstanding motor vehicle tax shall not be payable in respect of an ambulance, so ambulance not pay road tax. Any motor vehicle paid owned by the national government of Kenya, so no government vehicles, and they have something they're called county government. So no government of vehicles pay road tax, no vehicles of the Defense Force, the Police Service, the National Intelligence Service, or a person exempt from taxes under the Privileges and Immunities Act. So government vehicles ain't got to pay road tax, according to the legislation. Right? And it is saying here now, in some further amendment, we're coming down, that the new amendments here now says that contributions shall be made to the Social Health Insurance Fund according to the Social Health Insurance Act of 2023. So Mr. Ruto is proposing to Kenyans a social health insurance fund. So telling you that you're going to pay some health insurance, right? So it spoke to the case of an employee and the amount deducted according to what the government proposed. And it also spoke about a contribution to a post-retirement medical fund subject to a limit of 10,000 shillings per month. So then it says here that section 12 is saying that the Income Tax Act is amended again to say that the commissioner, meaning the revenue commissioner, may enter into an advance pricing agreement with any person who undertakes a transaction completed under the different legislation. So the arm's length price for transactions and it's what to the advance pricing agreements or whatever that don't exceed. But so he's giving the revenue commissioner power to go and make arrangements and agreements. They're called advance pricing agreements. So like, you know what is the future when you're able to buy and sell oil. So for example, you could lock in a price today. So if the price of oil is usually $80 and it drops to $60, you would lock in a contract with the dealer to buy at 60, although the price would have probably gone back up, but you enter into a contract with him to buy for 60, so he has to sell you for 60 for the specific time period, right? So futures and these type of things happen in Barbados. So the Kenyan government is giving the revenue commissioner similar type of power, similar to how we could go and buy futures and do what they call advance. So to come down further, the bill is fairly long, by the way. It's 100 and something pages. So I'm trying to get the most outstanding ones to you, but you know usually how these legislations are written to confuse and confound. So there's a lot of rhetoric and words in it. So trying to decipher that. Right. So the Income Tax Amendment Act of Kenya is amended to say that those persons who earn income from the supply of goods and services to a public entity, so meaning if you supply the government with goods and services, or you're making or facilitating payment on a digital marketplace, right? The government is amending the Income Tax Act to ensure that you are indeed registered, that anytime you do transactions with them in the digital space, that they could tax you. So remember, you guys gotta remember digitization. Remember, the government of Barbados is pushing digitization, pushing digitization. If you all know how the Kenyan economy is set up, digitization is expansive and extensive in Kenya, right? A lot of transaction payments happen by phone, right? So similar to First Pay and stuff, the Kenyan country has so many payment apps to it that the Africans use to do their transactions. So you're no seeing way the government of Barbados, right, based off this finance bill, is pushing Barbadians to go digital and pushing the systems of government to be digital, are pushing the procurement process to engage in government procurement digital, digital IDs, digital wallets, central bank digital currency, and the creation of new digital marketplaces because the government intends to tax you. Simple reason. So digitization is set up to have a broader tax base, right? That every user of a phone. You remember once upon a time only adults paid taxes, income taxes, but children when they go and do purchases would do like pay like VAT and those type of transaction taxes. But no, every user of a which is not inclusive of children, and this is not inclusive of even the disabled, everybody can operate a phone. And as long as you have a phone and a digital wallet and doing digital transaction, the government knows what's happening with you and your taxes because they will monitor you and they will tax you. So what happened in Kenya was the government sneaking these taxes on the young people and the digital economy, right? Because the Kenyan government, like what the government of Barbados is doing, went through the IMF hands and invested heavily in digitizing its economy. And along after digitization, based off this bill, comes taxation. So if what you're saying where the government of Barbados is pushing and pushing digitization, because the digitization will give them a much broader platform to extract taxation from the masses to go back to paying the IMF and those institutions who are excluded from the acts. Right? So you're seeing why the young population who are the ones who drive the digital economy, right? Why they would rebel because they, meaning social media and young people use the digital platforms for freedom and liberation, and you now put a price or taxation on the very thing that young people use to liberate themselves, which is the digital platform. Tax that, meaning you tax all Instagram users, you tax all YouTube users, you tax Rubble users, you tax everybody that come on to the digital platform. So I look at tax little children, because little children use cell phones and have tablets, and the children buy stuff online for the games and stuff. So even the kids do tax. If you are going down this, or the way how the Kenyan government sought to go down with the population. So I see it probably as the hand of the Lord that caused those Kenyans to protest and to reject the tax collector's proposal, because this is extremely draconian. Right? So I hope you're understanding what is happening here. So the government of Kenya has said that there were certain incomes that if you earn it in Kenya, they would provide tax exemptions for you. So if you were earning interest from bonds, you could get a tax exemption. If you were trying to earn some capital or to raise funds for infrastructure, other social developments, you could get a tax exemption from these taxes. If you were paying pension benefits from a registered pension fund, you get exempt. A registered provident fund, you get exempt. A registered individual retirement fund, you get exempt. National Social Security Fund, you get exempt. Right? So they exempted a lot of the seniors. Right? So they exempt, for example, if you took it to Barbados, you would say that the elderly people who get pension, they exempt the income from pensions from the tax, which means that they necessarily target the elderly and seniors of society per se, but because the elders still use the platforms, the digital platforms, so but probably not as extensive as the young people or as deep as the young people, right? But you exempt the incomes that the elderly population, you exempt that from the tax. So you give the elderly a break. It was said that most of the protesters were young people, and that's the very reason why. Because in the Kenyan finance bill, they exempt the incomes from social security and retirement. When you're young, you can't be retirement age. Right? So you see this strategic setup of the bill and who it is focusing on. The income that is earned from the digital marketplace. Like you have young millionaires who earn income from gaming platform, online gaming platforms. Right? People who play like Fortnite, and I ain't too into the games, but FIFA and all these games, online things for money, Call of Duty and all of these games. People are Mario Kart Smash. People are millionaires, young people, and the government is going after these young people's income. Right? So you can see where the young people of Kenya would rebel against the tax collector's proposal, Mr. Ruto. And you can see that the popularity of the protests came down to the fact that the young people of Kenya put it on the same TikTok, the same Instagram, and made content out of the same protest. That if you put a video in Kenya right now, Kenya's population is large, you get so many views. And the fact that the protests are trending worldwide, everybody's focusing on Kenya. And the people who know how to monetize content from that, the government is seeking to tax you. Kenyan government. Coming soon to Barbados, as soon as the government gets you comfortable, it's like a noose. It's like a noose or a trap that they set for you. And they allow you to walk in the trap. They put the food in the middle, they allow you to walk in the trap. No, let me use a better example. The example of the frog in the water, where the frog would jump in a cold pot of water that is boiling, but the pot is on and he didn't realize that it boiling, it boiling, it boiling, it boiling. He only realized when it started to scorch and it get hot that he in boiling water. And that's basically what is the government's intention for the digitalization of the Barbados economy. Get the people in the middle, get them comfortable using it, get as many users and high volumes of users as possible, get you in there, and then do what the Kenyan government is seeking to do to their people, they will try to do to us. Tax you to oblivion. Extract wealth. Right? So I have to keep bringing it to Barbados because there's a tie and a similarity between the two proposals. But I hope you're following. I hope the discussion is interesting. I hope that we are having some eye-opening moments and some wow moments. Right? Because Africa is the new wave. Right? Africa is the new wave. And we gotta start to understand what happens in these parts of the world, specifically countries that are under IMF policies, similar to how we are also under IMF policies, and the furthering of those agendas. What happens there, which are much more advanced economies than ours, will then trickle down here. And I told you how Kenya's economy is digitized, and Barbados is basically trying to follow in Kenya's footsteps as it relates to digitizing its economy. And Sean Cool is right. You heard the Prime Minister of Barbados constantly saying we need a fully digital cashless society by 2030, right in alignment with the United Nations Special Development Goals. Hey, a fully digital society. If the government of Barbados could ever get this society to a fully digital society, tax, and you can't get away from the tax now because the government got it digitally. So it's like a for sure chain around your neck that ain't got no key. So it's like putting a lock around your neck and putting the key in a burning furnace. They can't get away because they got a digital footprint. So in the digital world, these things don't go away. So as long as they get you into the digital realm, you're locked in. And the government can track every bit of income that you earn as a taxpayer. And if you touch them, they got you. If you're under declared income, they're gonna know because they're digital. So you can't under declare income. So automatically taxation, tax collection will massively increase. Tax collection will so all who was holding on to the money and they want to pay over digitally now, all of that will cut that out, right? So you gotta pay over now. So things like, I could tell you this, I could see the world or economic policy moving away from corporation tax and business tax. And I could see taxation becoming more individualistic as opposed to collective taxation. So when I say that, I mean, when we look at corporate tax, we are seeking to, or there's silos where the corporations can manipulate the books and so to have overuse of taxes that they collect. Because in Barbados, the government got a habit of using businesses to collect taxes, and the businesses holding on to the VAT and the other taxes, and the government don't pursue them. They just keep it. The Barbadian government caught that bad habit. Right? So, to get away from all of that mess and madness, the government will say, hey, let us move away from broad corporate tax and let us focus more on the individual tax in the workplace. Right? So it becomes more individualistic, right? Because you already have income taxes. You already have individual income taxes, right? Then you have taxes on bonus, right? So even to do excess work for reward, they tax you. So what is the sense of going overboard to work all this overtime every tax man and just hit? Right? So there are already high levels of income tax, and then we are a democratic society, so taxes will indeed be high on the individual. So the government, and if you remember how when you look back at socialist Germany and those places, Denmark and those places, people talk, but taxation levels were like 80% income tax and like 70-75% for these countries that were extreme democratic socialist. Taxation 50%, 60%, 70%. They were high. Right? So when a government or a state provides so many services for you for free, the taxation levels on the population have to be high enough to manage that. So to keep the services going and at the level that they're going at, you got to keep carrying up the taxes, carrying up the taxes, carrying up the taxes, carrying up the taxes. Right? So right now we pay substantially more in income taxes than we pay in corporation taxes. Right? And the economic policies nowadays, they always come with this thing is you don't want to be anti-capitalist, so you don't want tax capital owners. You don't want tax the investors. You don't want tax the wealthy. Right? You don't want tax the wealthy. Right? So you tax what you consider money to be non-investment money. Right? Money that's likely not to be reinvested. You tax that. Right? But you don't ever hear governments or there's a part right now which is the Joe Biden tax plan, the 15% tax plan, a global corporate minimum of 15%. So all corporations around the world that sign on to the Joe Biden American tax plan should be paying 15% in corporation tax. Income taxes in Barbados is 40%. Income tax, the highest tax band is 40%. So if you're a high income earner, high wage earner, you pay 40%. Well, a massive corporation earning record profits of millions and millions and billions and billions and billions, you charge 15%. You see that? I hope y'all guys understanding how this whole thing is set up. Right? You know that right now, some corporations in Barbados pay 5% tax. Some pay between 1 and 5% in taxes. So they're constantly lowering and lowering and lowering the taxes for corporations, but finding means and ways to increase individual taxes. So I gave you a list of them earlier from alternate views, how they structurally and systematically increase taxes on you, the person. Right? So let's look at it again. The claim removing NSRL would have easy prices on you in the supermarket. No, did not. A fuel tax. Every time you go to the pump, every time the individual man or woman go to the pump, you have to pay that fuel tax. You know that corporations have a very crafty way of writing off, observing the fuel tax and get a tax write off for it. Right? Corporations can do that. Observe the fuel tax and get a write-off, tax write-off for the fuel tax. But the individual man can't get away from paying fuel tax. Right? They carry out income tax ban of 40% again. Right? Income tax again. They put a pandemic levy now on high wage earners again. Individual, every individual the taxing, right? VAT on online transactions. Every single person, when you go and do a transaction online, every individual has to pay that tax. Again, another tax on individual income. The same health service contribution, again, another tax on individual income. Because 2.5% of your earnings going towards financing the hospital getting worse. But again, it's a tax on your income, your wage, your salary, right? Departure tax again. Every time you want to leave Barbados, got to pay. If you want to book a room, even go on a staycation, got to pay. So even your discretionary income, the finding means and ways to hit you individually. So all the taxes that were put in the government's mini budget and BERT plan, majority of them were taxes on the individual, on your income, on your wage, on your salary. Every single manja, they add a load to every single manja pocket, not the corporations and the big businesses. It went up to 30% corporation tax, but still individual tax. The individual tax ban, as I said, was 40, and they decreased the, when they ran into some trouble and they had to decrease the corporation tax for international business companies, they are now thinking about lowering. Right, the corporation tax in Barbados to a flat 12.5% for both international business companies and for local Barbadian businesses. So you see how a massive tax decrease from 30% down to 12% to fall in line with the Joe Biden tax plan, and increasing international business rates from 1.5 to a flat 12, that it will be 12 both locally and domestic, and there will be no such thing as the international business sector, but just one big domestic market. They will drop corporation taxes like that, and that is their plan. So when they come and they do announce it, just remember Alternate Views said it. Right? And these are actions that were taken by other countries around the world. Right? Ireland's corporation taxes is fairly low. 12 points. Ireland has good international business tax rates. Right? But we're very off. We're on Kenya. So let me get back to Kenya. Right? But so far so good, people. We are here at 172 persons. So thank you very much, alternate viewers. Don't forget to like and share the program. It's very informative. I am getting some comments that persons are learning a lot from the information. The information is quite eye-opening, to say the least. So let's continue where we left off. Right. So they continue to exempt Kenya any capital gains relating to the transfer of title of immovable property to a family trust. So, any income you gain from thing, they won't do that to you. Um, it says that, okay, so there's more exemptions, more exemptions. Right. I'm trying to get through here. It says, speaking about, you know, not necessarily things are too important. I'm just trying to get. Oh, no. Have it here now. Value added tax. Value added tax. Part 3 of Kenya's finance bill. Right. Part 3 of Kenya's finance bill. Right. Says that Section 2 of the Value Added Tax Act, so Kenya has VAT, Kenya has value added tax like Barbados, is amended by inserting the following new definition. Tax invoice includes electronic tax invoice issued in accordance with the legislation, and it speaks to VAT, and they even trying to charge VAT on these transactions as well. Right. So all of the transactions in the digital world, according to President Ruto's proposal, all the transactions in the digital world value added tax. So not only are they charging you income tax, right? Not only are they charging you income tax in the digital world, but they're also charging you VAT. Right? I have a question. I have a very interesting question, a very interesting theory. Remember, and going back to alternate views, Barbados, as far as I can remember, had what we call a metaverse. Barbados was the first country in the world to establish a metaverse, right? So I'm asking now, obviously in the metaverse, you will have to have something called meta land or digital land, right? So if you buy a piece of real estate in the digital world, you have to pay digital land taxes too, because President Ruto charging the Kenyans digital income taxes and digital VAT. So if you go and buy a piece of digital land in the metaverse that Barbados has an embassy in, do you have to pay digital land taxes too? A very serious question. Is that a theory? Is that one of those moments, when you're sitting and you're wondering and thinking yourself, but what if? But what if not? You know? But, but it's a very serious question. So the same slew of amendments that I saw for income tax, seeing it for value added tax here as well. And they list all of the products. They list all of the products that could be bought from the digital world that will be charged VAT. and not charge VAT. They gave you the exemptions as well. Right? So at one point in time, I thought, or I would say the old economies were structured on garnering income, wages, and salaries from the cooperation, from going to work. But here you have a set of young people who are not going to work, right? Who are not going to work, but saying, no, at home on YouTube and Instagram and TikTok and Twitter, I'm making millions. Building websites and apps, I'm making millions, becoming mega millionaires. And here is it that the government is bringing a digital footprint to roll out taxation, economic policy, taxation in the digital world. That the Kenyan government is seeking to regularize income taxes and value-added taxes on the digital marketplace. So Barbados be warned. Coming soon to Barbados. As soon as this digitalization effort suits the government's agenda, meaning that they get the digital ID in, they get you to pin those IDs to a bank account, right? And then they get you to put your income, all of your income, and this is what they're likely to do: outlaw the ownership of two bank accounts, right? Outlaw the ownership of two bank accounts and push you onto one bank account, which should be pinned onto the ID. And any and all income that you make, trust and believe, the same finance bill that passed in Kenya, that the young Kenyans protesting, coming to Barbados. Right? Coming to Barbados. So I want young Barbadians, elderly Barbadians, middle-aged Barbadians of all creeds and classes to hear the wisdom in my voice. Plan for yourself, plan for your family, and plan for the future around the information that is being provided here as it relates to what's happening in Kenya. And if you all guys know of the relationship that the Prime Minister of Barbados and the President of Kenya has, the relationship that the IMF has with both countries, then you would understand the warning that I'm issuing to you right now. Right? So let us move on. Let us try to get deeper into this bill. Excise duties. Excise duties. So the Kenyan government is saying that Section 2 of the Excise Duty Act is amended by inserting the following. And in this act, goods shall be classified by reference to the tariff code set out in the annex to the Protocol on the establishment of the East African Community Customs Union. Interpreting the annex, the general rules of interpretation set out shall apply. Right? So, excise duty. When you import items, right? When you import items, you pay excise duties. You pay excise duties. So if you, well, we already, the excise duty regime already exists in Kenya. Let me say that. However, this section here is saying to me that the excisable services, so the services that could be considered accessible are offered by residents and non-residents of Kenya in the digital space. Right? So whereby you could have gotten away, and I don't know how that's practical, but gotten away from excise duties. You know, have an excise regime being put in the digital world too. So as opposed to having to pay, oh no, I understand it now. As opposed to having to pay excise duties down at customs, right? As opposed to having to pay excise duties down at customs, you will just pay excise duties online one time. So when you order any product, remember the government will have all its platforms online. You will no longer be required to go down to customs and to deal with the customs officers. You will just pay your excise tax online one time in the transaction, right? So even customs and how customs operate will be impacted. And I remember there were a lot of changes to the Customs Act of Barbados under this current administration. There were a lot of changes to the Customs Act. So that's probably another show that we have to do later too. Right? They are seeking to, bring an excise tax regime online in the digital marketplace to say. Right? So you're saying that they are going after all of the areas of taxation and digitizing the areas of taxation. So digital income tax, digital value added tax, digital excise duties, customs excise duties. Uh, ring any bells, people? Right. So for those persons who do import and export, could you give us some feedback on how a digital excise tax regime would help you as an importer? Right? Tell us how it would help you. And they give all of the different things. So levies, fees, miscellaneous, um, that's not so outstanding. Right. Okay. Right. This is the part here that speaks to customs, but we don't want that as yet too soon. All right. So I hope you guys are getting the point that I am making here, So we don't know where the data is being stored. Remember when we had the violation by the IDB with the children on the survey, with the minister K. McConney, who was the minister of um, digitization or so. I can't remember what thing, but if right, she said that the data breach and the data collected from the children was stored at a location, whatever location, I don't know. When all of these digital platforms are set up, I don't know where the servers or the platforms will be. I don't know who will get the contract to build government servers that will house the information of Barbadians. So all your private information, as you know it, like date of birth, but all that was published online when they published the whole voters list anyway. Right? The entire voters list was published online that the average man jack on the street has access to that information. No. I must tell you that data and big data is something very valuable in these times. Data and is sold by data is sold by uh, companies for money. Identities are sold for money. So the collection of Barbadians data will be sold. There's no question about it. It will be traded online for money because people have products and people want those products to be sold, and they will pay top dollar for access to your information so that they can market their stuff to you, invade all your privacy. Sometimes you say what cross your mind right now. Just cross your mind, you just think about it, and the next 5 minutes you look at your phone and same exact thing pop up right in your face. You ever experienced that? Or you would write a text on WhatsApp about a nice black shirt, and then all of a sudden when you click on all types of black shirt companies popping up, uh, all types of people who sell black shirts popping up for you to see. That's because your data is being traded, and persons bought your data in exchange for, they call it markets, in exchange for markets. So we are being treated as our data is being treated uh for a market, like, because people have their products to be sold, and they want it sold. So that is basically the gist of it. We're coming up at 10 minutes to 9, so we're doing well. We have to get our devices. Just give me one moment. Let me turn off my camera. Yes, sorry about that. Uh, that's how to make sure that we were still fully going. Thank you. Uh, yes. So we have some comments here that I want to hit. Um, is the agenda shall go on nothing and Wait, Pedro Gemma is saying we saw the PM in an interview with the head of the World Data Lab. Hmm. Timmy is saying, yep, local companies trying to sell theirs. Pete Ray is saying the trader ID comes to money. Trader ID is a commodity. Right. Yes, it is. Designed to capture your data. Square 4 is saying, Kimar, it's alleged that something big is being hidden concerning the same money North American young people are all made millionaires by YouTube paying them when it comes to certain countries they are paying. Yeah, Barbados is banned from monetizing YouTube. So YouTube have been making millionaires out of many young people, but the government of Barbados refuse to monetize YouTube. That will give Barbadian content creators access to money earning opportunities. Right? So if the government was serious about young people, you could say this to the Prime Minister, you could say this to the Minister of Youth, the Minister of Technology. If y'all were serious about young people or people in general in Barbados who use YouTube for content creation, y'all would allow the monetization of YouTube pages in Barbados, especially for musical artists. Especially for musical artists. Right? So YouTube is making young people around the world millionaires. The government of Barbados is short of capital and need more millionaires. So why not reach out a hand to the young people of Barbados who also are very creative in the content making and allow them to access the world and gain views, gain millions of views and be paid. You know how many Barbadian TikTokers and Instagrammers get hundreds of thousands of views, millions of views on YouTube, and they can't earn a single cent because it is not monetized in Barbados, and the government of Barbados is not making any type of move to make it happen, but say that they care about young people. Come on, come on. A tool that can uplift and empower entire generations to give them wealth. No, but you want to pass social media laws to regulate social media in a cybercrime bill. So you want to shut down social media users, regulate social media users, stifle them, charge them $70,000, want to jail them for using social media. But the thing you have the power to do, which is to put legislation in place to allow for the monetization of YouTube for Barbadians, Barbadian artists, Barbadian singers, Barbadian content creators. You wouldn't do it, but you would try to pass a cybercrime bill to regulate and shut down young people and muzzle them and want to jail them and fine them and stuff. And speaking about a Budapest Convention and a whole lot of stuff. So, you rate yet, alternate viewers? Is it seeping in? Is it hitting home to you yet? What is happening here? Like, do you see what is happening here? No. When governments get into the behaviors of hand-picking winners and trying to create losers, that there be a class of people who are heavily paid and financed by the state, meaning highly paid jobs in the state, having the most lucrative jobs, access to government contracts, seeing government contracts. Right? When you create those type of situations where they haves and they have nots, and then you go after the very thing that they have nots use to free themselves and to help themselves and to earn, you go after it as a state, then you get the results of what happened in Kenya. Protests, death, revolution, rebellion, where the people of a country will come out and call for the removal of a president and call for the removal of a government. So, it happened in Kenya. My belief is going to happen to many other countries in Africa. So, what says you, Barbadians, and what says you, Caribbean people? when the Caribbean governments who are pushing digitalization and pushing digital IDs say to you that I am taxing you in the digital marketplace. Income tax, VAT, customs excise tax, everything. Well, passing is a cybercrime bill to shut you up that you can't come and criticize me for overtaxing you and criticize me for, you know. Good. So I am reading an article from the BBC, right? The British Broadcast Corporation, and it says that Kenyan president humbling Kenyan's Kenyan president's humbling shows power of African youth. Right? It shows the power of African youth. And it says that the events that led to William Ruto to abandon his budget might be enticing as a milestone moment, not only for Kenya's president, but also for the power of youth on the world's youngest continent, Africa. Through the potency of protests, organized largely organically, a movement initiated by young people on social media has forced one of Africa's most internationally regarded leaders to jump his flagship policy. And that's the policy that we know spoke about extensively there, right? Taxing the digital marketplace. It says that it is not that Mr. Ruto now realizing that he has been wrong to push for the tax hikes, which caused so much anger across Kenya. In fact, he began his address to the nation on Wednesday with a robust and detailed explanation of exactly why he believed these taxes were needed. And he said that his government, he said, had made a tough choice necessary to stabilize the economy and to help ease Kenya out of a debt trap, which forces it to spend 61 cents of every tax dollar repaying its loans. What does that sound like to you, alternate viewers? Which country does that sound like to you? Right? So Ruto is saying that these tax hikes, right, were set up to help stabilize the Kenyan economy. You know, remember the rhetoric is the same. So the same things you're hearing in Barbados, you're hearing in Kenya. So tax hikes are there to stabilize the economy and to help ease Kenya out of a debt trap, which forces it to spend 61 cents out of every tax dollar. And the finance bill was essential, he claimed, to redeem our country from the discomfort of debt and assert our sovereignty. That's what he's saying. And he said here that it makes all the more astonishing that the turmoil of recent days has forced the embattled president to change course so completely. Right? Instead of raising extra revenue, Mr. Ruto now intends to balance the books by introducing a new program of public austerity. It will notably include a cut to spending in his own office, meaning that the Prime Minister's budget was going to be cut. A clear nod to the fury heard from many on the streets about perceived corruption and government largesse. And in an attempt to reach out directly to Kenya's youth, the president promised to engage and listen to them, meaning the youth. And Mr. Ruto spoke in front of an audience of his own MPs, whom he thanked for having backed his finance bill. Many might now be forgiven for wondering where his U-turn leaves his credibility as a president, meaning that he pulled back the bill, he pulled back the tax hikes, he pulled back these income tax and VAT and all these hikes. And there is no doubt that the last 2 days have been severely bruising for Ruto. And his security forces were wrongly condemned for a brutal, meaning violence, death response in which people have died and several have been shot by police. William Ruto, shot by police because protesters standing up for the rights, refused to take more taxation, refused to bow down to the attack by the government, wanted to tax the digital marketplace and increase all of these taxes on the people, and many have died in the midst. So in the immediate aftermath of the bloody protests, Mr. Ruto highlighted that the criminal excesses at the heart of the chaos, threatening a robust response to the storming of parliament and widespread looting. But his concession on the substance of his policy on Wednesday came to with the acceptance that the demonstrations had at heart been a legitimate expression of anger by the Kenyan people. And it became evident, Ruto acknowledged, that the members of the public still insist on the need for us to make more concessions. And to quote William Ruto, it has, I run a government, but I also lead people, and the people have spoken. At home, the question is now whether the people believe that the withdrawal of Mr. Ruto's finance bill goes far enough, as some have called for planned protests on Tuesday to go ahead, demanding the president of Kenya, William Ruto's resignation, and the days ahead will show whether the genie of public fury and public protest can be put back into the bottle, meaning that the people being the genie out the bottle and the genie is out, and we have to see if Mr. Ruto can get this genie put back into the bottle because the gates already burst. Right? Many people died in this protest, and the point about his credibility now as a leader comes into question. Where and how can he explain to the Kenyan people why all of those people died for standing up for the rights for protest, to refuse to be overtaxed? People died. So, William Ruto is saying, or is saying here in the article, to say that beyond Kenya, Mr. Ruto will be wondering how the crisis has affected his global standing, as some of his country's closest diplomatic allies and the United Nations General Secretary demanded that Kenya uphold the right to peaceful public protests, and that the pressure might have played a part in the difference in tone between his speeches Tuesday and Wednesday. Perhaps the backlash to the violence displayed by Ruto's security forces will prove as powerful in shaping his response as the sight of thousands demonstrating against him. Whatever led to his backsliding and changing to remove the bill less than 2 years into his tenure, the task now is for how he would seek to rebuild and regain some level of credibility and regain any type of momentum with the Kenyan people. But the president, Ruto, is left to pursue an economic policy which he seems not to believe in. So, it says here that this victory over the powerful might prove or might provide fresh impetus to keep challenging the president's authority, and this episode could resonate elsewhere in Africa too. And that is the same point I made. Because although Ruto's U-turn was driven ultimately by more than just the anger of the young people, he himself, Ruto, recognized that it was Kenya's youth and the use of social media who sparked the fire and rebellion against his overstepping and abuse of power. And as a continent, Africa has the youngest population on earth, with almost three-quarters of its citizens under 35 years old. And Mr. Ruto said that he wanted to go after that population as a tax base, and sought to implement taxes on the digital marketplace and taxes on digital content creators. I hope that sends a message to Barbados, and I can spell it out a little more. Listen to the rhetoric, the economic policies of the government of Barbados this week, where in Parliament they passed a Barbados population policy. You heard the minister, she's the minister of Science and Innovation, Marsha Cattle, economist. You heard them speaking about the population of Barbados, how it's being aged, and how we got to increase the population of Barbados because it's dwindling, and how we don't have enough children in Barbados, and don't fall for all of that. That is a move simply to increase the tax base of Barbados. Open immigration policy. An open immigration policy into your country is a mean and way to increase the amount of people in the country and therefore increase the amount of people the government has to tax. So, alternate views again. I am going to substantiate the point that I just made, right? And speak to an amendment that was made where the government of Barbados sought to achieve an open immigration move into the country, right? Where they sought to get an increase in tax base. And not only tax base, they got to put it a little political too. They're also trying to increase the voter base, because when a government is unpopular locally and domestically, it has to reach outside its borders to get voters from the diaspora to continue to keep the regime in power. So I would reject any notions with overseas voting in terms of, not that I don't want the diaspora to participate, I want the diaspora to participate. But any notions of online voting for the diaspora, say no. Trust me, say no. Right. So I am looking for the specific section in alternate views which speaks to the government at the time changing the CARICOM Act, Skills Movement Act, the CARICOM Skill Movement Act, which allows the residents of CARICOM people to get much easier citizenship, and to also bring the dependents, which is the children and other family members, well, just the children dependents, to get citizenship as well. So that will get the people migrating into Barbados, and the government, the system will allow it easier for the children to also migrate. The children also go into the school system and use other thing or whatever. So, and they grow up to become taxpayers later on. So they tried with CARICOM twice, because they amended the CARICOM Skill Movement Act twice, continuously added new categories of persons who can get work, or the categories can get work, right? And it's making, I got it here. Alternate views, viewers. Alternate viewers, recording for alternate views. If you want to follow what I'm saying, go at page 174. Right? Page 174 of Alternate Views, the book. There's it here, people. Alternate Views. Don't forget to get a copy if you don't have one. It says the Caribbean community movement of skilled nationals and the Amendment Act that was made in 2019. And it was tabled to revise the category of persons who are eligible to be recognized as skilled community nationals, to include artists, musicians, media persons, sports persons, cultural workers, agricultural workers, domestics, nurses, teachers, and to revise provisions related to the indefinite stay of skilled community nationals and dependents, meaning children, of skilled community nationals in Barbados. Let me repeat that again for you. The Caribbean Community Movement of Skilled Nationals Amendment Act. And then it was later amended again recently. And it was tabled to revise the categories of persons who are eligible to be recognized as skilled community nationals. Artists, musicians, media persons, sports persons, cultural workers, agricultural workers, domestics, nurses, teachers, and to revise provisions related to the indefinite stay. We all know what indefinite mean that they live here. An indefinite stay of skilled community nationals and the children of these community nationals. So look at it. In Europe, there's always one country in favor of immigration, and then there's always a party. There's always one party in favor of immigration, and then there's one party anti-immigration. There's one party shouting, bring in the migrants, let in the migrants, open immigration. Look at Angela Merkel in Germany. Open immigration. And then there's another country saying, there's another party saying no, close borders. Trump was saying put a wall, shut out the Mexicans. But the Democrats are more liberal with the Democrats allow, right? So when you import these people, and we got to bring a little political lens here now. These people tend to follow politics in a way where the particular government at the time that gave them the privilege of being a Barbadian and giving their families the privilege of being a Barbadian, these people tend to, not in all instances, but the assumption is these people tend to vote along the lines of the same government that helped them in. Right? So with that fact, it increased the voter base for the administration that's in power. And then when you bring them in and you give them work, you increase the tax base of the country as well. Right? So right now, Barbados is practicing an open immigration policy, free for all. Everybody could come. Why do you feel everybody could come? It's not that Barbados has the most special facilities in the world. It's not that Barbados is an excessively rich country. But think logically, alternate viewers. Why would Barbados be opening its doors to any and everybody, criminal, no criminal, what everybody? Why do you think so? Because Barbados has a problem. Barbados has a problem. And there you have it, people. So we're coming down almost the stretch. Are you right, Pedro? Barbados has a problem. Barbados has to repay the billions and billions and billions of dollars that the Prime Minister borrowed, the Ministry of Finance borrowed in the name of the people of Barbados. So they have to seek to the 300,000 people in Barbados realistically can't afford to pay back the 5 to 6 billion US dollars that we borrowed since 2018. Barbados is $14 billion in debt, and that's what they report, but it's more than that, right? The 300,000 people here can't work hard enough or will not live long enough to repay the debt that Barbados is in. And that is why Barbados is on an open hand, an open immigration policy to get all and sundry coming in this country, because they have to look for new people to tax. They have to look for people with higher incomes to tax. So remember the welcome stamp program that allowed high income earners during COVID to come here. And then you heard something online speaking about citizenship by investment, where they want to sell Barbadian passports to rich investors who could afford to do it. Because uh, by any means, the 300,000 people plus the tourist numbers, and that's where they tax tourism, right? Because the amount of tourists that flows through here, if you count them man for man, there's significantly more tourists come through the country per year than we have a population. So they put the taxation on individual tourists and say that the individual tourist has to pay for a room. So for example, if a million tourists come to Barbados, that's a million people, a million tourists that have to pay taxes in this country every time you book a room, and you have to pay the room rate levy. So that's how the government is looking at it. Numbers. So if we can get some new people in here, that increases the probability of higher tax collection. But I have another article to read for you, and it says here, President William Ruto is under IMF pressure to implement fiscal reforms in order to access crucial funding, right? And you hear that? William Ruto is under IMF pressure to implement fiscal reforms in order to gain access to crucial funding. Remember, Barbados had a timeline to implement some of these programs: pension reform, digital ID, all a lot of economic policies that the government roll out. Right, a lot of economic policies the government was working with the IMF deadline, tight deadlines, that to be able to gain access to more funding, Barbados had to be implementing measures. So defaulting on the debt, restructuring the debt, reforming customs, reforming BRA, reforming the procurement system, reforming the tax system, implementing the garbage, the sewage tax, the all of those measures. The more measures you were able to achieve, remember the government always talks about targets. Oh, we met the IMF targets. Oh, we meet targets. And the IMF likes to report that, oh, the government of Barbados meet targets. Every time you meet the targets, you get access to more and more IMF resources and more um, funds from the IMF. Right? So William Ruto has been a champion in terms of the IMF and some of its policies. Right? And Ruto has been calling for extensive reform of the IMF, right? So we're going to touch this last point here now about Kenya's relationship, particularly Ruto's relationship with the IMF, right? So Ruto is saying here that for all, the IMF must listen to the needs of its global membership and adapt to emerging challenges. This is Ruto speaking. So Ruto is saying for over 8 decades, the IMF has stood as a pillar of global macroeconomic and financial stability. Originating from the Bretton Woods Conference, attended by 44 delegations, and the IMF now encompasses 190 member country, with Africa's 54 members forming the largest regional group. So Africa, you hear the word Africa, has 54 countries, and Africa forms the largest group of countries in the IMF, right? And Kenya is a part of Africa, right? So here's Ruto speaking, and Ruto is saying that this growth reflects a significant evolution from the original framework, which was designed to support the gold standard and fixed exchange rates. The collapse of the gold standard 50 years ago shifted the IMF's role from underwriting fixed exchange rates to promoting flexible exchange rates. Meanwhile, Barbados still has a fixed exchange rate, by the way, but here's what Ruto is saying, that in response to these shifts, the IMF has evolved into a development financing institution, and its current portfolio spreads $112 billion spread across 90 countries. Right? And the critical driver, according to Ruto, he is saying that in his recent discussion with international officials, a consensus has emerged on 4 key areas of IMF reform. Right? And Ruto is calling for IMF reform to the different portfolios, right? He also spoke about the current voting rates in international financial institutions, that they do not reflect the economic and demographic realities of today. And Ruto is arguing, right? William Ruto is arguing that debt distress, that the developing world is facing a debt crisis reminiscent of the conditions that led to the IMF's and World Bank's highly indebted poor country initiative of the mid-90s, right? And that the World Bank's latest international debt report confirms this prognosis, reporting that sovereign defaults in 10 countries in the past 3 years surpassed the total preceding for 2 decades. And that moreover, the number of emerging market economies with bond yields, I don't want to read all that technical stuff, but with rising interest rates, compounding debt servicing challenges, there is an urgent need for the comprehensive debt refinancing program. Who speaks about debt refinancing all the time on the international world? The Bridgestone Initiative, debt refinancing, and specifically at IMF forums, who leads Barbados that constantly speaks about this? And Ruto is speaking about it here, on the IMF's website, by the way, because that's exactly what I'm quoting Mr. Ruto from, the IMF's website, right? He's saying here that with rising interest rates, compounding debt servicing challenges, that there is an urgent need for comprehensive debt refinancing programs similar to the Brady Plan response to the Latin American debt crisis of the 1980s and provide relief and support sustainable development. Global economic governance has lagged behind the economic rise of the global south and other geopolitical shifts, and the current voting rates in international financial institutions do not reflect the realities of today, particularly the significant contributions of the global south, which already accounts for half of the global GDP. And corporate governance principles suggest a need for more equitable representation and independence in decision-making processes. The future relevance of the IMF will depend on its ability to adapt to these emerging challenges and listen to the needs of its global membership. And the path forward involves significant reform, but with cooperative and concerted effort, we can ensure that the IMF remains a cornerstone of global stability for generations to come. So Mr. Ruto is saying that the path forward, we need to ensure that the IMF, William Ruto, President of Kenya, is saying that we need to ensure that the IMF remains a cornerstone of global stability for generations to come. And an IMF sponsored arrangement in the finance bill was rolled out in Kenya and met with stiff protests. Let me tell you why that would happen. Because we're at 9:30, so we're going to wrap up sharp. But let me tell you why he would say something like that. Right? It says here on the eastafrican.com, I do these things, it says that, and Reuters, which is an online financial journal, the Reuters is saying that Kenya expects, and this article was printed the 30th of April 2024, this year. It says here that Kenya expects a green light for a $1 billion disbursement from the IMF next month, which would have been May, this June. Right? So, President William Ruto was expecting a $1 billion IMF disbursement next month. And if you go April, May, this is June, right? And it said that the $1 billion disbursement would boost an economy showing improvement after averting a debt crisis earlier this year. So Kenya was in a debt crisis, right? And it's saying that Kenya's shilling, which is their currency, has bounced back from record lows. Says the government issued a 15 billion, well, not 15, can't mix up, a 1.5 billion euro bond in February that calmed market jitters over a potential default on a $2 billion bond that matures in June. So the taxes that William Ruto brought in the finance bill of Kenya was intended to raise revenues. I see it coming back wrong in cycle. You see the information is coming back wrong in cycle. The bill was there to raise the revenues to avert Kenya defaulting on a $2 billion bond that is due in June. So Kenya has a problem. Ruto has a problem. Because if Ruto cannot find the money to pay the debt on that $2 billion bond that is due in June, Kenya is going to default on its debts, and that's going to create a much worse problem for Ruto and Kenya. So that's why the finance bill came, to give Ruto the leverage to raise the revenues. Since then, he has had to pull it back. But the reality is he still has to find a $2 billion payment to avert a default this month. So you see that when Barbados' time come around to do repayment on debt, foreign debt, when Barbados' time comes to do foreign debt, look at the lengths Ruto has to go to get that revenue to pay back the IMF and those people. Look at it. Look at the lengths he has to go to. So Barbados will face the same wrath. Barbados will face the same wrath. Right. So to continue the article, it says that the currency's woes, combined with high inflation and no new taxes intended to plug budget deficits. You see anything we were saying all along, fill the hole, right? And they have driven up the cost of living, fueling anger, and even bringing protests, as we've seen on TV. And it says that robust lending to Kenya from the IMF, robust lending to Kenya from the IMF and the World Bank, according to this article, has allowed Kenya to navigate a liquidity crisis, meaning that they had no money and the IMF lent them money as a lender of last resort to bail out Kenya. So Kenya was receiving substantial bailouts from the IMF, and that the country, meaning Kenya, received 941 million from the IMF in January. So Ruto got $941 million from the IMF in January this year, right? And that amount brought Kenya's total borrowing to the IMF is $4.43 billion. But the amount that they owe is 2.5 billion because they would have repaid and been making some of the repayments along the way. So now they owe 2.5. But total borrowing, the total loan portfolio from the IMF to Kenya is $4.43 billion. And Ruto added 941 million of that in January this year. And he was set to get another set. You know? So it said that Ruto told Reuters, that the IMF officials would arrive in his country on May the 9th for a review meant to unlock a $1 billion tranche. Right? And this process is going on very well, Ruto said in an interview, adding that talks between the Kenyan Cabinet Secretary of Finance and the IMF in Washington during the World Bank IMF spring meeting earlier this month were extensive and very successful, and that the IMF has not commented on the ongoing review. And in recent weeks, devastating floods have left at least 169 people dead and piled spending required on the government. Even so, Ruto reiterated an earlier vote to cut spending in the upcoming fiscal year from 4.2 trillion to 3.7 trillion. So Ruto was cutting back expenditures. Right? And earlier on Monday, Ruto and the other African heads of state called for rich countries to commit record amounts of low interest facility to the World Bank for developing nations, saying that they were facing deepening debt and climate crisis. And we want a fair international financial architecture, Ruto said. So you guys see the problem that Kenya is facing? Kenya is embroiled. Kenya is wrapped up. I don't know what to say about Kenya and the IMF and how deep embedded Kenya is with the IMF. Right? And you see the reason why Ruto had to bring the finance bill. So the clock is ticking on Barbados. I mean, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be difficult on Barbados. As somebody said, Kenya is a heavily resourced country surrounded by other heavily resourced countries. But Barbados don't have those levels of resources. So think about the measures. Think about the measures that will be implemented in Barbados to be able to recoup the revenue to pay back those loans. Look at what Ruto had to do. Right? So, my people, I think I've said enough for tonight. So, I want to thank you all for tuning in. I had a very good show. It was very informative. I like the wait. So I want to express my gratitude to all of the viewers for showing up. We are at 182 persons right now. So just want to acknowledge all of you, all those persons in the comments. You were chatting a lot. Kenny, Pete V, Tyrone Nurse, Pedro Gemma, Keith King, sorry. Square 4 again, Hurricane Rata, Jude Lawrence, Sir Alfred, Sean Cool, the usual. But let me thank you guys for coming on. Let me just do a quick advertisement. Um, you know, we advertise Stuart and Perkins Real Estate, Stuart and Perkins Caribbean Real Estate. We are sponsored today by Stuart and Perkins. Most of our streams are powered by the sponsorship of Stuart and Perkins Caribbean. We do economic consulting, political and governmental consultation, public financial issues and management, along with other ventures like real estate and some other things that I want to announce along the way. Also, I want to acknowledge the Caribbean Progress Studies Institute to say a good night to them as well. There's a conference coming up in August, and we're going to try to get some content going from that as well. But you'll hear more about that along the way. Um, is there anything I am ready? No. So thank you guys very much. Tune in to me next week. We're gonna make a slight addition for next week. So I hope you tune in next week again, 7 o'clock same time. Tune into the Marcy Week show tomorrow night at 7 p.m. the usual time. Don't forget that as well. Um, oh shoot, there's a picnic at Bath in St. John called the Stressless Picnic, which is being held by the Marcy Weeks group as well. So don't forget to come to the picnic. It's on July the 7th at Bath in St. John. Good night to all of my people in St. John again, and good night to my people in the city. Good night to my people in St. George, St. Philip, Christchurch, St. Lucie, St. Peter, all in the parishes of Barbados. The viewership in the diaspora, America, England, Italy, Germany, France, Africa. Good night to the Africans. We spoke heavily tonight about Kenya and the Africans. And all I am saying here is let us give thanks to the Father. Had a very good show again. And next week we will continue going more in depth. So my gratitude goes out to you viewers. Thank you for all those persons who commented. Don't forget to like, don't forget to share, don't forget to pass it on to other people. Don't forget to take out some clips, circulate, send to whoever, and let us have some deeper discussions. I try my best to respond to most persons. However, I have to do more in terms of engaging when you reach out on WhatsApp and so. I try my best. It's a lot of messages to respond to, a lot of videos to watch, a lot of voice notes to hear, a lot of text to read. So I am trying my best to chop down the amount, but more and more and more and more and more, they keep coming in. So I try my best to get back and to engage more. Pedro, I do have room for recommendations. Sometimes when you have houses and stuff to sell, you do require workmen, construction men, and the like. So there's definitely room. So my telephone number is 8469912, and that's for WhatsApp. I prefer you to WhatsApp me with your name and stuff so that I could engage with you. But let us chat again some other time, Pedro and others. We're signing off because time is getting away. So thank you very much, alternate viewers. I will see you next week. So long live Barbados and goodbye.